The slap stings like a whip crack across my cheek, the sound ricocheting through the living room like a gunshot. My hand flies to my face, fingers trembling against the burning skin, and I taste blood where my teeth have grazed the inside of my mouth. The silence that follows is heavy, suffocating, until it's shattered by a sharp, cruel laugh from the couch. "About time someone put her in her place," Vivian sneers, her voice dripping with venom, her designer glasses glinting under the chandelier's light. My mother-in-law lounges in her throne-like armchair, her lips curled in a smirk that could curdle milk. "The girl never learns," Belle chimes in, her giggle muffled behind a manicured hand, her eyes sparkling with the same malice as her mother's. She had it coming, honestly, strutting around like she owns the place. I stand frozen, my heart pounding, tears I've long taught myself to swallow threatening to spill. Trevor, my husband, flexes his fingers, his face devoid of remorse, only the smug satisfaction of a man asserting his dominance. "Maybe now you'll think twice before embarrassing me in front of my colleagues," he says, straightening his tie with a casual flick, as if he's just swatted a fly. "Your outburst at dinner was unacceptable, Mia. Completely unacceptable." "My crime?" I dared to speak about my nursing degree when his boss's wife asked, refusing to let Trevor talk over me. 3 years of this. 3 years of being their punching bag, their entertainment, their scapegoat for every cruel whim. The humiliation cuts deeper than the pain, a blade twisting in my chest. Vivian's laughter, Belle's giggles, Trevor's cold indifference. They form a chorus of contempt that's become the soundtrack of my marriage. I'm trembling, not from fear but from a rage I've buried too long, when I hear the front door creak open. Footsteps, measured and deliberate, cross the marble entryway. I turn, and there he is, my father, Colonel James Camden, standing in the doorway, flanked by 2 men in military fatigues. His steel-gray eyes sweep the room, taking in my tear-streaked face, my reddened cheek, Trevor's raised hand. The air shifts, heavy with unspoken authority, and the room falls silent. Dad's gaze locks on Trevor, and though his face remains calm, there's a storm brewing in his eyes, one I've seen only once before, when he faced down a soldier who'd crossed a line. "Gentlemen," he says to the soldiers, his voice low, controlled, and more terrifying than any shout, "I believe we've found our target." Vivian's laughter dies in her throat. Belle's phone slips slightly in her grip. Trevor's smirk freezes, his hand dropping as if it's suddenly too heavy. The house itself seems to hold its breath, waiting for what comes next. I'm Mia Camden, a pediatric nurse who's spent 3 years trying to be the perfect wife, shrinking myself to fit into Trevor's world, only to realize it's a cage built by his family's cruelty. Tonight, that cage is about to crack open, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for what lies beyond. But as my father stands there, his presence a wall of unshakable strength, I know one thing for certain. Nothing will ever be the same. The evening started 6 hours earlier, with Vivian rearranging the place settings for the 3rd time. "No, no, Mia," she said, moving my carefully placed salad fork, her voice sharp as a blade. "The Waterford crystal goes on the right. How many times do I have to tell you?" I bit back a response, adjusting the fork under her hawk-like gaze. Everything had to be perfect for Trevor's boss, Mr. Braxton, whose dinner tonight could secure Trevor's promotion at the law firm. Belle, perched on the kitchen counter, filed her nails and chimed in. "The flowers are too tall, Mia. They'll block conversation. Honestly, it's like you've never hosted before." I hadn't. Not really. Vivian never let me. 3 years of marriage had taught me to keep my mouth shut, to nod and smile while they reshaped me into someone I barely recognized. Trevor appeared in the doorway, adjusting his cufflinks, his tailored suit impeccable as always. "How much longer?" he asked, glancing at his Rolex. "Braxton will be here in an hour, and I need everything perfect." I spooned caramelized onion tarts onto plates, the result of an afternoon's labor to please him. "Almost done," I said, feeling his hands settle on my shoulders, a gesture that looked loving but carried a warning in its grip. "You know how important tonight is," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "Don't embarrass me." The words landed like ice, chilling me to the bone. I turned, searching his eyes for the man I'd married, but found only calculation. "When have I ever embarrassed you?" I asked quietly. His smile was sharp, a blade disguised as charm. "There's always a first time." Vivian clapped from the dining room. Trevor, darling, come look at the centerpiece. We need to change it entirely. He squeezed my shoulders too hard and walked away. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the tarts I'd made with such care, wondering when my life had become a performance I could never get right. 2 years ago at our wedding, Trevor had whispered, "You're glowing," as we danced, his promises of love and care wrapping me in warmth. I'd believed him. God help me. My father had walked me down the aisle, his dress blues gleaming, pride in his eyes. "He seems solid," Dad had said during our dance. "Driven, as long as he remembers what's important." I'd laughed, too happy to hear the warning in his words. Now, standing in this kitchen, I felt the weight of that mistake, a slow poison that had seeped into every corner of my life. My father's voice cuts through the silence like a blade, calm but laced with an authority that makes the air feel heavier. The 2 soldiers behind him stand like statues, their eyes scanning the room with a precision that screams discipline. Trevor's hand, still hovering where it struck me, drops to his side, his face draining of color. Vivian's wine glass trembles in her grip, her smirk replaced by a flicker of fear. Belle's phone slips from her hand, clattering onto the couch. "Colonel Camden," Trevor stammers, his voice thin, "I can explain." Dad's eyes don't waver, pinning Trevor like a bug under glass. "Can you?" he says, his tone conversational but edged with steel. "Please explain why Buznam's daughter's cheek is red and she's tasting blood." Trevor steps back, his polished shoes scuffing the marble floor, as if distance could shield him from the storm brewing in my father's gaze. "Sergeant Justin," Dad says without turning, "what did you observe when we entered?" The taller soldier steps forward, his voice clipped and professional. "Sir, I observed a male subject with his hand raised in an aggressive posture over a female showing visible signs of recent impact to the face." Dad nods, his expression unchanging. "And you, Corporal Jenkins?" The second soldier, younger but equally composed, responds, "Same observation, sir." Also noted 2 additional females in the room, observing without intervening. Vivian sputters, her voice rising in indignation. "This is ridiculous. This is a private family matter. You can't just barge in here with armed men." Dad turns his gaze on her, and she shrinks back, her bravado crumbling. "Mrs. Brennan," he says, "I've been tracking your son's behavior toward my daughter for months. Tonight was merely the confirmation I needed." Trevor's face goes from pale to ashen. "Tracking?" he chokes out. Dad smiles, a cold, calculated curve of his lips that I've seen only in his stories of outmaneuvering enemies. "Did you think I wouldn't notice when Mia stopped calling?" he says. "When she canceled family dinners, made excuses for bruises, and started sounding like a shadow of herself?" I stare at him, my heart twisting. "Dad, I never told you," I whisper. His eyes soften briefly, just for me. "You didn't have to, sweetheart. 30 years in the military teaches you to read the signs of abuse, even when someone's trying to hide them." He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a manila folder, placing it on the coffee table with a deliberate thud. 3 months ago, I hired a private investigator. The results are illuminating. He opens the folder, laying out photographs. My arm with a bruise I'd forgotten, a screenshot of Trevor's text calling my job a waste of time, a medical report from a clinic visit I'd lied about. "Your law firm, Trevor," Dad continues, "has strict policies about partners engaging in domestic violence. Something about maintaining integrity. Mr. Braxton was very concerned when I shared these with him this afternoon." My head spins. "This afternoon?" I say. "You knew they were coming to dinner?" Dad nods, his eyes never leaving Trevor. "I orchestrated it, Mia. I needed to see if he'd show restraint in front of his boss. He didn't." Trevor's legs buckle, and he sinks into a chair, staring at the photographs like they're a death sentence. Vivian's voice is shrill now. "This is entrapment. You can't use illegally obtained evidence." Dad's smile widens, but there's no warmth in it. "I'm not trying to put him in prison, Mrs. Brennan. That would be too quick. This is about consequences." He turns to Belle, who's clutching her phone like a lifeline. "And you, Belle, your fiancé's family might be interested in your role in this. Social media moves fast." Belle's phone buzzes and her eyes widen, likely seeing the first whispers of tonight's events spreading online. Dad's people have been thorough, I realize, my chest tightening with a mix of awe and unease. He's dismantling their lives with the precision of a battlefield strategist. "Mia," Dad says, his voice softening as he turns to me. Pack your bags, your personal items, your documents, and your grandmother's quilt. I retrieved it from the garbage where they threw it. My breath catches. How did you? I've had eyes on this house for weeks, he says simply. I know every secret they thought they could keep. He holds out his hand, steady and sure. It's time to come home. I look around the room at Trevor, slumped and defeated, at Vivian, her wine glass now trembling violently, at Belle, frozen in panic. 3 years of my life, wasted on people who saw me as nothing more than a prop in their perfect world. But as I meet my father's eyes, I feel a spark of something I haven't felt in years. Hope. I don't move yet, not because I'm unsure, but because a part of me needs to process this moment. The soldiers stand like sentinels, their presence a silent promise of protection. Trevor tries again, his voice desperate. Mia, please. We can work this out. But his words are hollow, and I see him for what he is, a man who chose control over love, who thought he could break me and still keep me. Vivian's eyes dart between me and the folder, as if she could will the evidence away. Belle's phone keeps buzzing, each notification a nail in the coffin of her carefully curated image. My father's hand remains extended, a lifeline I didn't know I needed until now. The room feels smaller, the air thick with the weight of truths finally exposed. I take a step toward him, my heart pounding, not with fear, but with the first stirrings of freedom. The living room feels like a battlefield, the tension thick as I stand on the edge of a decision that will change everything. My father's hand is still extended, but I hesitate, not out of doubt, but because the weight of 3 years presses against my chest, demanding I acknowledge it before I walk away. 3 years of shrinking myself, of swallowing my voice, of letting Trevor and his family chip away at who I am. I look at him now, slumped in his chair. The photographs of my bruises spread before him like a confession he can't deny. His eyes dart to me, pleading, but there's no remorse there. Only fear of consequences. Vivian's wine glass has left a red stain on the marble floor, a mirror to the chaos she's helped create. Belle's phone is silent now, her hands trembling as she stares at the screen, likely seeing her social world unraveling. The soldiers behind my father are motionless, their presence a reminder that this moment is bigger than me. Bigger than this house. I think back to the early days of our marriage, when Trevor's charm had felt like sunlight. We'd moved into this house, Vivian's dream house, not mine. 6 months after the wedding, the first crack appeared over a grocery receipt. You spent how much? Trevor had said, holding the paper like it was evidence of betrayal. $80, Trevor, I'd replied, confused. For the whole week. His jaw had tightened. It's not about the amount, Mia. It's the principle. I work my ass off, and you're spending like we're millionaires. I'd apologized, promised to be more careful, because I thought that's what love did, smoothed over sharp edges, made concessions. But that was just the beginning. The second crack came when I mentioned picking up extra shifts at the hospital. Absolutely not, he'd snapped. My wife doesn't work weekends. What would people think? I'd rearranged my life to fit his, turning down opportunities, prioritizing his career, because I believed that's what wives did. Vivian's cruelty was subtler, cloaked in concern. At our first family dinner after the honeymoon, she'd fingered my dress, my favorite, bought with a week's pay, and said, "Is this from Target? How practical." Trevor had laughed, and I'd felt my confidence shrink. "I could take you shopping, Mia," Belle had offered, her smile as fake as her enthusiasm. "Help you find your style." My style, as if everything I was before their family was wrong. Every gathering became a lesson in inadequacy. My cooking too simple, my job too ordinary, my family too working class. Trevor didn't defend me, he joined in. "Mia's still learning to cook for a crowd," he'd say at dinner parties, his tone apologetic. "She's not much of a decorator," he'd explain when guests saw our sparse living room. Each dismissal was a small death, a piece of me erased until I barely recognized myself. The worst was the day Vivian redecorated our bedroom. I came home after a 12-hour shift to find my grandmother's quilt, the one thing I'd brought into this marriage with real meaning, crumpled in a garbage bag. "Oh, good, you're home," Vivian had called, beaming. "I got rid of those shabby touches and gave you something worthy of Trevor's position." I'd clutched the quilt, my hands shaking, and whispered, "My grandmother's quilt." Vivian had waved a hand. That old thing, it was falling apart, darling. Trust me, this is better. That night, Trevor hadn't comforted me. It's just a blanket, Mia, he'd said. Look at what Mom did for us. Be grateful. Grateful. I should be grateful for a life where nothing of mine was allowed to exist. I'd thought about calling my father then, staring at his number in my phone, but I didn't. I told myself I was overreacting, that marriage meant sacrifice, that I was lucky to have a family trying to improve me. But the truth was, I was drowning, and I didn't know how to swim to shore. Now, standing here with Dad's hand outstretched, I see it clearly. This wasn't love. It was control, dressed up in promises and expectations. Trevor's voice breaks through my thoughts, desperate now. Mia, we can fix this. I'll get help. But his words are empty, a reflex to save himself, not me. Vivian tries to speak, her voice shrill. You can't just destroy our family like this. Dad's eyes flick to her, cold and unyielding. You destroyed your own family when you decided my daughter was acceptable collateral damage. I take a step toward my father, then stop, needing to say something before I leave this house behind. You made me believe I was the problem, I say, my voice steady despite the tears burning my eyes. You told me I wasn't enough, my job, my choices, my existence. But you were wrong. Trevor opens his mouth, but I cut him off. No, you don't get to talk anymore. I look at Vivian, her face pale, and Belle, her eyes wide with panic. All of you built a world where I was nothing. But I'm not nothing. I'm a nurse who saves lives, a daughter who's loved, a woman who's done with your lies. The words feel like a release, a weight lifting off my chest. I turn to Dad, taking his hand, feeling the strength that's always been there, waiting for me to claim it. As we move toward the door, the soldiers flanking us, Trevor calls out, Mia, wait, but I don't turn back. The photographs on the table, the shattered wine glass, the buzzing of Belle's phone, they're the wreckage of a life I'm leaving behind. My father's grip is steady, grounding me as we step into the cool night air. The stars are sharp above, and for the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. I don't know what comes next, but I know it starts with me choosing myself. The door closes behind us, muffling Trevor's final plea, and I walk toward the car, my grandmother's quilt safe in Dad's trunk. A symbol of everything I'm reclaiming. The night air feels sharp against my skin as I follow my father to his car, but my mind reels back to the dinner party 6 hours earlier, where this nightmare began to unravel. The dining room had been a stage, every detail orchestrated by Vivian to impress Mr. Braxton, Trevor's boss. The table gleamed with her curated perfection. Waterford crystal, silver cutlery, a centerpiece of lilies so precise it could have been sculpted. I'd spent all day preparing, my hands trembling as I plated caramelized onion tarts, hoping to meet the impossible standards of Trevor's family. Vivian had hovered, correcting my every move. The napkins are folded wrong, Mia, she'd said, her voice a velvet glove over a fist. This isn't a hospital cafeteria. Belle, lounging in the kitchen, had added her own jab. Those tarts look rustic. Hopefully, Braxton doesn't notice. I'd swallowed the sting, focusing on the food, the one thing I could control. When the Braxtons arrived, the atmosphere shifted. Mr. Braxton, a distinguished man with kind eyes, greeted me warmly, his handshake firm but genuine. His wife, Andrea, radiated a quiet elegance, her smile disarming. You must be Mia, she said, her voice like a balm. Trevor's told us so little about you. The comment wasn't meant to wound, but it did, a reminder of how Trevor erased me from his narrative. Dinner began smoothly, the conversation flowing around Trevor's cases, his ambitions, his charm on full display. I stayed quiet, nodding at the right moments, playing the role of supportive wife. But then Andrea turned to me, her eyes bright with interest. Pediatric nursing must be so rewarding, she said over the main course. What's it like working with children? For a moment I hesitated, feeling Trevor's gaze sharpen across the table. But her sincerity pulled me in. It's wonderful, I said, my voice soft but steady. Last week we had a boy, 7, facing brain tumor surgery. He was terrified he'd wake up different, so we talked about superheroes, how hard things can make you stronger. Andrea's eyes misted, and I felt a warmth I hadn't known in years. That's beautiful, she said. What a gift you gave him. Before I could respond, Trevor cut in, his laugh tight. Mia's being modest. She just does basic bedside care. Nothing too technical. The words landed like a slap, dismissing my degree, my certifications, my years of training. Andrea frowned, her brow creasing. Actually, pediatric nursing requires specialized skills. My daughter considered it before choosing family practice. I seized the opening, my voice stronger now. The continuing education alone is intense, I said. We manage complex equipment, comfort kids through fear, work with families under stress. Mr. Braxton nodded, his expression thoughtful. That's leadership, Mia. Emotional intelligence makes the difference between good and exceptional healthcare. Pride bloomed in my chest, a forgotten feeling, but Trevor's face darkened, his fork clinking too hard against his plate. The rest of the meal passed in a blur of forced smiles and stilted conversation. I could feel his anger building, a storm waiting to break. When the Braxtons left, their compliments about the evening ringing in my ears, I knew I'd pay for daring to shine. As soon as the door closed, Trevor's mask fell. "What was that?" he hissed in the foyer, his voice low but venomous. Vivian and Belle had retreated to the living room, their wine glasses clinking, but I felt their ears straining. "What was what?" I asked, though I knew. "You dominated the conversation," he said, stepping closer, his breath hot. "Made yourself the center of attention, made me look like I don't appreciate my wife." I stood my ground, the memory of Andrea's respect fueling me. I was answering her questions. She was interested. His eyes narrowed. "She was being polite, and you turned it into a performance, going on about your little nursing stories." Vivian's voice floated from the living room, sharp and gleeful. "I told you she'd ruin it." No sense of propriety. I walked toward them, my hands shaking, but my resolve hardening. "Let's be clear," I said, facing Vivian's smug expression. "Andrea asked about my work, and I answered. Should I have lied? Pretended I don't have a career?" Vivian's lips pursed. "You should have been brief, dear. Steer the conversation to Trevor's accomplishments. His matter." The implication was clear. Mine didn't. Trevor exploded. "For once, could you support me without making it about you?" The unfairness hit me like a wave, and I laughed, a bitter sound that startled even me. "Support you? I've done nothing but support you for 3 years. I've let your mother throw away my belongings, dictate my life, while you dismiss everything I am." Trevor's face flushed, his control slipping. "You embarrassed me in front of my boss, Mia. You forgot your place." The words hung between us, a gauntlet thrown. "My place?" I repeated, my voice low. "Explain it to me, Trevor. What's my place?" His jaw tightened. "Supporting me. Not grandstanding while I'm trying to make an impression." I stepped back, my hand on my chest, as if to hold myself together. "You embarrassed me by tearing me down in front of people who valued me." Vivian laughed again, high and cruel. "Oh, honey, you made it so easy." That's when Trevor raised his hand and I didn't flinch. "Do it," I said, my voice steady. "Show them who you are." The slap came, Vivian laughed, and then my father walked in, changing everything. The echo of Trevor's slap still lingers in my ears, a sharp reminder of the line he's crossed. As I stand in the living room, my father's presence a steady anchor behind me. The photographs on the coffee table glare up at us, bruises on my wrist, a text where Trevor called my dreams childish, a hospital report I'd buried in shame. Vivian's shattered wine glass, sparkles on the marble floor, a jagged reflection of her crumbling composure. Belle's phone buzzes relentlessly, each ping a crack in her perfect social facade. Trevor's eyes dart between me and my father, his bravado gone, replaced by a desperation that makes him look small, almost pitiful. But pity is a luxury I can't afford, not after 3 years of swallowing their poison. My father's hand is still extended, but I'm not ready to leave yet. Something inside me, long buried, is clawing its way to the surface, demanding to be heard. "You don't get to do this anymore," I say, my voice steady, cutting through the room's heavy silence. Trevor opens his mouth, but I raise a hand, silencing him. "No, you've talked enough. All of you have." I turn to Vivian, her lips parted in shock, her usual venom replaced by a flicker of fear. "For 3 years, you've treated me like I'm nothing. You criticized my clothes, my cooking, my job, as if I'm some project you could fix to fit your image of Trevor's wife." I stepped closer, my eyes locked on hers. "You threw away my grandmother's quilt, the one thing that tied me to my family, my history, and you called it trash. But you know what? That quilt survived wars, poverty, and time, things you'll never understand because you think strength comes from money and status." Vivian's mouth opens and closes, no words coming out, her usual poise unraveling. I turned to Belle, who's clutching her phone like it might save her. And you, Belle, you laughed every time your mother tore me down. You stood by while Trevor controlled me, belittled me, and tonight, when he hit me, you giggled like it was entertainment. You're not just complicit, you're guilty. Her eyes widen, and she looks away, her phone buzzing again, likely her fiancé seeing the first posts about her role in this mess. I faced Trevor last, my heart pounding but my resolve ironclad. And you, Trevor. I married you because I thought you loved me. I thought your promises meant something. But you've spent 3 years trying to erase me, making me smaller so you could feel bigger. Tonight, you showed everyone who you really are, a man who'd rather hit his wife than let her shine. Trevor's face crumples, his voice shaking. Maya, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. You did mean it, I cut him off, my voice rising now, fueled by years of suppressed anger. Every time you dismissed my job, every time you let your mother humiliate me, every time you made me feel like I was the problem, you meant it. You chose control over love, and I'm done pretending that's okay. The room is silent, the air thick with the weight of my words. Even the soldiers behind my father seem to lean in, their stoic faces betraying a flicker of respect. Dad's eyes meet mine, and I see pride there, a quiet acknowledgement that I'm finally fighting for myself. I've spent 3 years apologizing for things that weren't my fault. I continue, my voice steady now, like a river finding its course. I've let you convince me I wasn't enough. My nursing degree, my passion, my worth. But I'm done. I'm a damn good nurse. I save lives, comfort children, make a difference every day. And that matters. That has value. That is enough. I pull off my wedding ring, the diamond catching the light as I set it on the coffee table next to the photographs. This marriage is over. My lawyer will handle the rest. Trevor's eyes widen, his hands reaching out as if to stop me, but he freezes under my father's gaze. Vivian finds her voice, desperate now. You can't just leave, Mia. We're family. We can fix this. I turn to her, my smile bitter but free. Family doesn't laugh when you're hurt. Family doesn't throw away what you love. You were never my family, Vivian. You were my jailers. I turn to my father, taking his hand, feeling the strength that's always been there, waiting for me to claim it. I'm ready, I say, and the words feel like a vow, not to him but to myself. As we move toward the door, the soldiers flanking us, Trevor calls out, his voice breaking. Mia, please, I love you. I stop at the threshold, not turning back. If this is your love, Trevor, you don't know what the word means. The door closes behind us, muffling his final plea, and I step into the night. My grandmother's quilt safe in Dad's car, a symbol of everything I'm taking back. The stars are sharp above, and the air tastes like freedom, but it's laced with the ache of what I've lost. Not just a marriage, but the version of myself I let them steal. As we drive away, the house fading in the rearview mirror, I think about the life I'm leaving behind. 3 years of trying to be what they wanted, of silencing my own voice to keep the peace. But peace at the cost of myself was no peace at all. My father doesn't speak, his hand steady on the wheel, but his presence is enough. I lean my head against the window, the cool glass soothing my burning cheek, and let the tears come, silent and hot. They're not just for the pain, but for the woman I was, the one who believed love meant sacrifice, who thought she could change a man who never wanted to change. I'm not that woman anymore, but I'm not sure who I am yet. All I know is that I'm free, and that's enough for now. The car hums softly as we pull away from the house, the glow of its windows shrinking in the side mirror until it's just a speck in the dark. My father drives with the steady focus of a man who's navigated worse storms than this, his hands firm on the wheel, his silence a comfort rather than a void. I clutch the edge of my grandmother's quilt, now safely folded in the back seat, its familiar stitches grounding me as the world I've known for 3 years crumbles behind me. My cheek still stings, a dull pulse where Trevor's hand met my skin, but the pain feels distant, like it belongs to someone else. The night air rushes through the cracked window, cool and sharp, carrying the scent of pine and freedom. I'm not sure where we're going, Dad's house, maybe, or somewhere else entirely. But for the first time in years, the uncertainty doesn't scare me. It feels like a beginning. I glance at my father, his profile lit by the dashboard's soft glow, his jaw set but his eyes softer than I've seen in years. You didn't have to do this, I say quietly, my voice hoarse from tears and truth-telling. The soldiers, the investigator, all of it. He keeps his eyes on the road, but a small smile tugs at his lips. You're my daughter, Mia. I'd move mountains for you. This was just paperwork and a few phone calls. I laugh, a shaky sound that surprises me. Paperwork that's about to cost Trevor his job and Vivian her social throne. Dad's smile widens, just a fraction. Consequences aren't my doing, sweetheart.